Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm doing swell. How you doing, Bob?
I'm here. That's all I can ask for right now. We're trying to, it's January, so February comes next. I think something like that. You take one foot and you put it in front of the other.
Yes, and that's really all we can do, except
Um,
lie down. And I've been doing some of that too.
really need to do some of that. Um, we have a guest scheduled for tonight. I'm not. I gotta be honest with everybody up front. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't quite heard an acknowledgement yet from John Ostrander. He has agreed to Mike, according to Mike, that he will be here. So we're hoping he shows up. Um, if I get a call that I need to help him, we'll work that through. Um, but in the meantime, we're gonna talk about some comic stuff. We're gonna talk about some news. We'll see what we can get to.
Recipes. We'll get to recipes.
I have some good ones.
I'll bet you do.
I'm sure I do.
Bet you
All
do.
right. I do want to say that we've been doing this. This is our 76th episode of this. We're like on like almost full we've almost 2 years, pretty regularly. We missed a handful of Tuesdays. Um,
But we made up for it with a handful of Thursdays.
oh look, Mindy's watching. She's just excited to see John, and hopefully he'll be here for her.
Yes, how could John let Mindy down?
I'm sure. Um, all right. What's going on in the world? It's been, as Mike and I were talking about, there's been some announcements on some DC stuff. There's some Marvel stuff, movie wise stuff that's going on. But I don't think we can get away with the fact that coming up this week is probably the biggest comic book movie of the year.
This week.
This week. I think it premieres this week. And that is Dogman. It is going to be an animated film that is going to premiere this week. And let me tell you, every kid, anybody under the age of 10 has been bugging their parents that they want to go see Dogman. Like, I have a coworker, a colleague at work at my day job who knows what I do here. And he's like, hey, I told my kids that you might know somebody who knows somebody about Dogman. And I'm like, well, I've seen him and I know people who know him, but it is a big deal. Like, we know that Dogman is doing well and Scholastic is doing great for them. And we all think about that, but to run into people who only get that experience of sequential art through their kids reading this and seeing this and being excited about it, it gives us hope for the next generations.
Well, let me put on my reporter's hat and ask you, what is it about?
The Dogman?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's about a guy who's a dog man. I don't know. Is it some reporter? I've never read it.
It's the biggest superhero.
It is. Doesn't matter. It's going to. People are going to go watch it. I'm not going to watch it.
You're not going to watch it.
I listen. I barely watch the things that I like.
That's true. That's true. I hate to say it, but after all these years, it turns out Bruce Springsteen is wrong. I do not have enough time to watch the stuff I'd like to watch. I also don't have enough of an attention span because, reality keeps on seeping in and distracts me.
Right. There's there's these things that go on in the world where I forget. I saw something about it recently where there's this unconscious thing where you go back and you rewatch the movie that you watch all the time or the show that you watch, especially when you're feeling bad, right? It's one of the interesting things about human interactions is that when you're in a stressful situation or your body is, activated, you just want comfort. And that includes comfort media, right?
Yeah.
So, that's why you'll you'll go back and you'll do a rewatch of Star Trek: The Next Generation, or you'll watch Star Wars the trilogy, or whatever it is that thing is that maybe
I watched movies that were made before I was born, but I generally rely upon music to fulfill that function for me.
That's fair too.
And every night I have sort of a ritual. It's actually every morning because I get to sleep around 4 a.m. But I have a ritual where I will spend the last hour or two, maybe more, just listening to music. I'll do some reading in the beginning, but the last hour, nope, I just veg out, listen to whatever music strikes my fancy. My record collection has over 40,000 singles. And of course, there's streaming audio everywhere. So the theory here is I won't get bored. Whatever it is I want is available. And that's close to true. I'm too persnickety to make that 100%, but it's close to true.
Well, I think that's true. I definitely, I get in that boat. I wonder, we'll leave that out there. Anybody wants to pop into the comments, what is it that you use for your comfort media? I think that's interesting.
Well, wait a moment. Can we eliminate substance use from
No, we're talking about not
media.
Like
I understand
media, music, TV, movies. I'll watch Smallville, the whole thing again. I've done it a few times.
True. Some people though would respond to that with medicinal responses.
Sure.
And I understand that, particularly in these highly trying times. For example, a friend of mine, guy I haven't seen in many years, unfortunately, invited me many years ago to the Montana Comic-Con. I was there, and Grohl was there, and I met Stan Line, and I just had this wonderful time. And he was a really great guy, Bob Elder.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, he took a job working for the Chicago Tribune, which all of his friends warned him against, and then working for the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. Now, he doesn't have that job any longer either because this has been going on for a very long time, and he's doing more productive things. However, today, in his absence, they moved their little doomsday clock another minute closer to midnight. It's about a minute and a half away from midnight, and I'm not kidding.
I know. I saw it.
Yeah, I know. The saddest part of the whole thing is, I get that. You look at that and you go, well, yeah, we're invading Greenland. Sorry. Sorry. I understand why we're going to invade Greenland. That actually makes more sense. But than a lot of stuff that's going down. But because if you look at a map,
So you meant, I don't know if anybody was here for the beginning, but we do have a new intro that we've updated for the new year. It kind of has a little clips and stuff, and it takes our existing intro song. So if you haven't been here from the beginning, our intro video and our exit video are both the same song, the beginning and end of a song, and the song is called "Pray for Rain" by a band called Space and Time. And if you start to listen to the beginning words, it talks about weather and crisis and climate change and all the things of that. And it's appropriate for us to have that for this show. Plus it's rocking. I like it. The guitarist is my wife's cousin. So there's even that. So,
that's cool.
Yeah. But it's important. So like, those are the kind of things that we see where, we're always thinking about that and how, the doomsday clock moving another however many seconds closer to midnight, we're getting there. We're getting there despite anything that, the sane part of us are trying to do. The insane part is just hammering away, drill baby drill.
It's how long can you tread water? I mean, that's really what it is. if Las Vegas had a betting line on what's going to do us all in, it would be really interesting to see what the majority of people who have any intelligence whatsoever think. Will it be the weather crisis? Will it be climate change? Will it be our politics? Will it be our lust for going to war with chicken shit little countries that can't defend themselves so we can pick on them? Yeah, we're not going to take on China. We're going to take on Denmark. Wow. I mean, these are really tough times, and therefore, I'm almost done rereading all of Terry and the Pirates by Milton Caniff,
Okay.
which was set, the first, almost all of it, was set in the period before World War II, before America's entry into World War II, and it was essentially about the Dragon Lady and her friends trying to stop Mao from taking over China. And yeah, you ask about comfort media. For some reason, I guess because Milton Caniff was such a spectacular storyteller, and Terry and the Pirates is my idea of the greatest use of the comic art form ever. That's what attracts me to it at this moment in time. Surprise, you didn't think I was going to get the comics, did you?
Oh no, I knew you would. I want to talk about it a little bit since we have plenty of time tonight. So let's talk about Terry. What is
look at you. Look at you. Wow.
What is if somebody hasn't read Terry and the Pirates, why is it attractive to you?
Well, first of all, I mean, almost everything is going right for the strip. I mean, it starts out, a little on the crude side, because everything starts out a little on the crude side, but it very rapidly hits speed. Caniff had as his assistant Noel Sickles, a great illustrator, did a lot of work for Life magazine in the 40s and 50s. Magnificent illustrator. He designed the Terry logo and then later the Steve Canyon logo. So you're looking at people who are the masters of their form, of the comics form. The influence that Caniff has had on comics professionals is immense and unending. Plus, our friends. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said that's true.
Yeah, our friends at the American Comics Library, is that what it's called? I forgot. Newspaper Comics Library. They are reprinting for the second time the entire Terry series in larger, more magnificent, and more fully illustrated with better everything form in a 13-volume set, which runs the better part of $1,000 if you bought the whole thing all at once. And I'll tell you something, one volume at a time, go for it. It's the best this medium has ever had. And like all good storytelling, it is relevant to what's going on today, no matter what you think is going on today, what your attitude is. I mean, Caniff and I probably would not have agreed much on, for example, the Vietnam War. That's quite possible. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He has his right to comment on it, so view it the way he wants, and he gets his facts right. He also had this uncanny predictive ability. He had predicted in Terry, he had predicted the atom bomb. And in Steve Canyon, he predicted the kidnapping of Patty Hearst, among many other stories.
So now we're going to turn this into a little bit. So we're hoping John shows up. I'm just going to say that, but I don't know for sure. I haven't heard from him, so I'm hoping that he does. He's still got
They might
time.
not have power where he lives.
He might not. We don't know. It's always a big bet. But we're going to keep talking. So what? How did Caniff? First of all, he has one of the best, possibly the second best signature in comics.
Absolutely. Who's the best? Who's better than his?
Walter.
Walter's is great, but you got to figure out that's a dinosaur.
Well, but once you do, it's
just amazing.
So, but what? How did he? How did he change? What is the difference between stylistically between Terry and like Steve Canyon? And then obviously people grow for the most part. But how would you compare the two?
Um, I like the early Steve Canyon. I like Steve Canyon in general. I mean, because Kniff is that good.
Right.
It isn't as strong as Terry in any respect, although it started off probably with the best character introduction I've ever seen in comics. If you read the first week of Steve Canyon, Steve doesn't even show up until Sunday. The strip starts on Monday. The previous, he's walking through New York, and people recognize him, but you don't see the guy until the action starts on Sunday, which is a brilliant tease. He was arguably one of the two most influential comics cartoonists in American history.
Oh, yes.
The other being Alex Raymond. And if you wanted to, you could divide everybody who came into the comic book field in the 1940s, when it's pretty much started, and 50s, into one of two camps. Are they more like Raymond or Kniff? Raymond was the guy who did Flash Gordon, who co-created and illustrated Flash Gordon. And I say illustrated, even though I hate the term when it's applied to comics, because his work was illustrating the little blocks of copy that were in each panel. They didn't talk in balloons like real people do. So you look at all of these great artists and you go, wow, that he was studying Raymond, and he was studying, Kniff, and the guys who followed in Kniff's wake are just classics. Frank Robbins and Alex Toth, and to a considerable extent Howard Chaykin. Just magnificent people. I can go on, and I generally do. But
I mean, yeah, it's interesting. What's interesting is that the museum, the Billy Ireland Museum, in the University of in the Ohio State University that we went to, we talked about earlier on the show, was founded with Milton Caniff's work, right? It was his. Yeah, he was from there, and it was his endowment that started the museum. And so I was in that museum with Howard, and it was quite an experience. But
tell us a story.
Well, it was good. He yelled at people. He it's interesting because I don't want to tell his stories per se, because they're brilliant and I am not a prince. But he was very happy with the experience, which I thought was interesting. There was examples of people whose work he does not like, and he let us know. So there was some Spiegelman he wasn't very happy with, and subsequently I've learned why. So I would recommend, if you are a friend of Howard and you're not on Facebook, or if you I don't know if he has it in his Substack. I know he does a Substack occasionally, but his remembrances of Jules Pfeiffer over last week were classic. Let's put it that way. So
Jules's death, even though he was 95, so it's not like we didn't kind of see this coming. But it's remarkable just how semi-stunned we are. We're still lucid, and we can talk about it, which is good. But the effect that Jules's work has had, not just on my generation or even on your generation, young man, but on comics in general. We're talking, DC had this program that only lasted a couple of weeks, where they would bring in a master of the comics form, and he would do like a 2-hour presentation. We'd invite everybody from DC and from Marvel and from the comics industry. Marvel and DC both were in New York at the time. We were at one of the Time Life conference rooms, and Jules showed up to introduce Will Eisner.
Okay.
And Will Eisner, oh, I know. That's a double feature, right? And it's like Godfather 1, Godfather 2. And Jules was brilliant. Eisner was brilliant. Howard might disagree with that, although he does admire Eisner's output.
Yes.
And then the next guy, or the guy after that, was supposed to be Milton Caniff. So I came that close to meeting Milton Caniff.
And never showed up.
He did. It's not that he didn't show up. It's that he was just too ill. He couldn't do it. He couldn't fly out to New York or whatever, which was a terrible, terrible shame. And he died not long after that. His letterer, Shel Dorf, who was one of the founders of the San Diego Comic-Con, later wound up doing some lettering jobs for me over at DC.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, Shel's been around since they invented ink.
Yeah,
he's no longer with us, but he deserved something, everything. But I always regret, of all the people I've met, and I've met a lot, and I'm thrilled to have done so. Caniff was the one that got away, and
sure.
I have no idea what he would have said, but boy, it would have been interesting. Just that simple.
Yeah, that's something that I'm going to come back to that. I want to let people know. So Mindy posted her comfort media. She watched Topper today, which fantastic. I never don't like seeing Billy Burke in any film.
Yes. Billy Burke is just a great presence on screen.
Now, I believe that Margaret Hamilton did not enjoy the experience with Billy Burke.
And why is that?
I don't know. I have heard that they did not get along.
You got to be careful about Hollywood gossip, but
I think it came from Margaret. But
yeah, on the other hand, we're dealing with actors who during the studio days, the studio system days, very isolated.
It's just
they got to do anything they wanted in this very small, unpublic space. But when they were out in public, it's a whole different deal. You were working for the company then. So I understand those repressed feelings.
Yeah, I didn't want to spoil her comfort media, but Sherry has been watching Star Trek: The Next Generation. I think she's in season 3 now, and she's gone from the beginning. So that's been in our house. What's been going on? But yeah, anyone who tunes in, we're gonna leave that up. Tell us what your comfort media is. We'll talk about it. I want to turn a little bit to some stuff that's current about comics. I got this in the mail. This is Chest Face. Let's see if I can highlight this.
Tilted a little bit.
There we go.
There you go. Yeah.
There we go. So Chest Face has shown up in my mailbox. I have now read it. It is the Kickstarter that we had Dean Haspiel on earlier this year. Let me tell you, you want to know the thing. I mean, it's a good story, and it's a classic, good Dean story where he's being very meta and very interesting. I really enjoy the caption story that goes on the outside of the action that happens within each panel. And there's a nice thing, but I'm going to tell you the production of this book, self-produced, the lettering, the way that everything's laid out, the style. I don't know if you can see any of this. Like there's some
back up a little bit.
There you go. It's really, really good. And I don't know if Dean's watching, but probably not. But anyway, if you can get to Dean Haspiel's website, you should, and you haven't backed this, It's probably only a couple of bucks. You should definitely think about getting it. If you see him at a show, you should get it from him. It's
And
really
ask him where my copy is. Damn it!
I will ask him. He will. He will.
Dean is a friend of the SquadCast and a friend of ours, and a friend of mine for a long, long time. And I am a huge fan of his stuff. And nobody does comics the way Dean does.
I mean that's
Truly
it is a Dean Haspiel deep cut is what they say, and it is the one shot single story, one and done. Tells you where you start, gets you through an adventure, gets you to an end. You know, it's really well done comic. So yeah.
When is it going to be released to the comic stores?
I don't think he's distributing it.
Right.
He's done his distribution with Diamond in the past, and
yeah, that's a problem. Particularly today.
It's a problem.
It's a problem, particularly today, because today Diamond went on the block.
Did it? I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Well, they officially put themselves up for sale. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Well, if you're going through bankruptcy, then there's sort of a de facto presumption that if somebody walks in with a lot of money and says, I'll pay your bills and take your company and you'll have a little bit left over, that often becomes a good idea. So there are people who watch that sort of thing.
Sure.
It comes with a bankruptcy filing. And almost every company of any size whatsoever has gone through some bankruptcy reorganization. It's not a death sentence.
Well,
but the time may have passed Diamond by.
So I get the, and we're not gonna. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I do want to mention that I get an email from my comic shop every week, and they say, hey, here's what's coming out this week. So you want to come in and get your stuff, and maybe there's a promotion going on or whatever. So then I clicked on the thing, and I was doing the number ones that is out right now on Pop Culture Squad for the new comics that are coming out next week. And we might get into those later, but it's a decent list. A lot of one shot anthologies and some interesting books. But one of the things is coming that I'm very excited for. Is Silverhawks comes out this week. You don't know what that is, but Silverhawks is one of those.
I know from Silverhawks.
I understand.
I actually passed on it at DC.
Did you?
I did.
So Silverhawks, I love Silverhawks, and the new comic is coming out tomorrow. And I looked at my email from my local comic shop, and I'm like, "Hey, I don't see Silverhawks here." And they're like, "Neither do we, because we haven't gotten our Diamond distributed." Yes, because Dynamite distributes through Diamond, and they haven't gotten it, so they don't know when it's coming or if it's going to be there. And that's what they're dealing with right now. Although I will tell people who are watching, tune in a couple of weeks, because Ed Brisson is going to be on the show. We have to schedule it on a Monday, but we are going to have Ed Brisson on very soon, and he is writing Silverhawks.
There's a lot of, I don't want to say small publishers, but when two companies or three companies own so much of the pie, everybody else is small, who are truly dependent upon their sales through Diamond. And if Diamond can't deliver anymore, then it's the downside for bankruptcy. Those smaller publishers who need the money, not that the bigger ones don't, are shit out of luck.
Yeah, and there's a lot of.
It's like taking your return to Sears. Good luck with that.
There's a lot of good companies that use Diamond as they were trying to get behind and take deals to use. So Distillery was exclusive with Diamond. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure Dynamite. I mean, I can't imagine Nikki not being with Steve. They're thick as thieves. But I think. Didn't Nikki work for Diamond originally at some point?
I don't know. The two of them, Steve Jeffy and Nick Verrucci, kind of look.
Well, one's younger. One's younger, but
Yeah, I know. I think maybe they're related. I really don't know.
but anyway, so Dynamite's with Diamond, and so, and I saw something. I think I want to say that I thought Vault was with them direct and exclusive. I don't know if that's the case anymore, but
No,
I
they're
saw
going
that.
through major changes too.
Well, so Vault, I saw number one that they're advertising direct. They're direct wholesale to retailers. They can go through a distributor, but they can also go directly to Vault for distribution. Um, I also know that they had a book that was supposed to come out tomorrow called Little Maroon Boy. What is it? It's an old strip or something. Little Maroon, Kid Maroon.
Okay.
They got the rights to that, and it was supposed to come out tomorrow. But they have told the retailers that they're canceling all the individual issues, and they're just going to collect it as a collection.
Yeah, I mean that's what they have to do. There's this perception that somehow the publishing industry is a good way to make money. It never has been unless your name is Stephen King. And I mean, there are a few others who have made money. I don't want to make it sound like that, but and it's not that people aren't reading. People are reading, but they're not reading what they used to read and not reading the way we used to read. It's a wonderful way to lose money if you happen to have any, and if you don't have any,
If I had some, I would lose it that way very well. I would be very happy to lose money that way.
Been there, done that.
I understand.
Been there, done that. It's a tough business, and you're living literally from paycheck to paycheck. You're trying to pay the people who are doing the work. You're trying to pay the printers and the distributors and the color people, the engravers, and it's a very expensive business. And then the money comes in after you've spent all of this money on editorial product and on printing and distribution and stuff. So by the time that check comes in, a lot of hands are out there looking for it. And if that check doesn't come in, there's a professional word for it. There's the term in the publishing business is you're fucked.
Yes, I understand. Very familiar with that word. I think you asked me if I was in that situation earlier today, and pretty close, but not quite.
A lot of people in America, we are not alone.
Yes. So I want to talk about, so if you pay attention to my social media feeds, I did a lot of reading over the last week. I read 35 books in the last week, 35 comics. There are a few that kind of stuck with me that I want to talk about because there's an interesting thing about this medium. It is accessible. It is formulaic at times. It is comforting at times. It is interesting. It will blow your mind in certain ways. But sometimes you get something where somebody takes the medium and uses it to its fullest potential to tell a story or do something with it that's outside of the norm. And I want to highlight like 3 books that I've read that do that kind of a thing. Since we have time. So the first one is Minor Arcana, and I don't know if you're reading this or if anybody's reading. Are you reading Minor Arcana?
No, I'm not.
It's Jeff Lemire. It's Jeff Lemire. This is issue 5. It is determined to be a long form. It is in the realm of Sweet Tooth, of his, that he's intending that this is going to be, it's going to go for a while. I think this is the end of the first arc. There's supposed to be four long form books, 4 deluxe hardcovers. So maybe it's not. Maybe the first hardcover is like the first 12 or so. It is about a girl who goes to her hometown, like on the main waterfront kind of thing, the know nothing town, and she doesn't want to go home. But her, her mom is sick, and her mom's like a tarot reader or something like that. And she turns out that there's actual ability in her, right? That's the 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 idea of it. But one of the things that Jeff's done and it's written and drawn by him. So it's in his style. It's that very, cartoony, washed, colored style. Very well done. He's got Steve Wands lettering it. But what makes it interesting is that he's committed to telling a long story, right? So while there's a lot that happens in each, one of the good things about the way this is done, because it can be done wrong, where people will tell a story and really tell you nothing in an issue, right? You won't get anything. You just like, okay, well, you drew 22 pages of that could be 5, right? That's not happening here. It's really excellent. This issue particularly kind of takes it. We're at the point where we're like, we've got the introduction to this character. We've seen some things that have, made us question what's going on, made the character question what's going on. And now we get to, this is a much bigger story. That's what this issue does. It opens it up to her past and her, future past generations of like, this isn't new.
What issue number?
This is issue 5.
Okay. I'm a fan of Jeff's, and he's a very, very, very good cartoonist. There's no question about it. One of the tops. And there's stuff that I sort of, will wait for the trade paperback or what have you.
Well, it'll be a deluxe edition.
Yeah. Well, see, there's a problem with that. They're coming out with I guess they just came out with this like what if omnibus of like 700 pages or something like that.
I want it.
And, I can't lift that shit. I mean, sure. I can't.
Did you get one?
No.
Oh.
No.
You should.
I mean, I can't lift it. What am I going to do with it? I don't need a
They should have sent it to you. Is what I'm saying.
They should have sent it to me.
Were you not editing that?
Say again.
Who's Who? Didn't you worked on Who's
Who?
Who?
No, this is What If.
Oh, What If? Oh, the What If. I'm sorry.
But I didn't work on Who's Who either. That was Bobby Greenberger.
I know Bob did, but I figured
who hates being called Bobby, by the way. So
I understand. I don't, because I don't want him to hate me. But you can. So yeah, I mean that's one of the things that kind of stuck out. There's a bunch of things, and it's a lot. Like you read a lot of things. When you read that much that fast, a lot of it can flow by. I enjoy almost everything I read. There's very rare that I'll come across. I didn't like action.
that left me kind of flat.
Yeah, it wasn't for me. But other things, a lot of it's really fantastic. This one I want
of the week.
Okay, what's your favorite of the week?
Since you asked, they did a anniversary issue, I guess number 275, which makes it an anniversary. I think 275 makes it a miracle, of Savage Dragon, Eric Larson. Now, Eric is a guy whose work I have loved since I first saw his samples.
Yes.
It's really kind of fun to see him evolve into this. This current issue is 100 pages. Half of it, maybe a little less, is the current Savage Dragon story, which is fantastic and hilarious and action-packed and well-drawn and everything you want in a comic book. The back half are reprints of stuff that he did when he was younger and wonderful material, but you can see how he's evolved both as a writer and an artist, and I really enjoyed that. Savage Dragon is both a parody of and a tribute to particularly the Marvel comics of pretty much my youth, and maybe Eric's as well. And he puts all that stuff in, but it's very adult oriented. I mean, there's sexual material. There you go. Sexual material in there, particularly involving Mickey Mouse, which may be a little difficult to describe, although it's easier to describe today than it was a year ago. So,
yeah, I mean,
that was my favorite of the week.
That was the favorite book you read. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
I want to. So what's funny is that when I do this show and I do the prep work, we were hoping John was going to be here, and we'll figure it out for those who are still, hanging on. I don't know that he's going to make it. He hasn't responded to my emails yet, but he spoke. John, like, besides the fact that the SquadCast exists, Mike and John have been friends for 50 years. Those who don't know that, you should. But they had a conversation, and whatever happens. We'll get him on the show.
Just to be precise, almost 54 years.
I know. That's one of the questions. Like, the question is, how has he been able to put up with you that long? So
that's a fair question.
I thought it was. But when I do that, I kind of do some prep, and I came across this cover that John wrote the story to, and I looked at it, and I have this book, but I'm like, oh yeah, Eric Larson drew this, and I'm like, Eric Larson didn't do this cover. It looks like he could have.
Yeah,
it could be an Eric Larson cover. Did the cover, right?
No, I don't recall.
Oh, Sienkiewicz. It's Sienkiewicz aping Larson, I believe.
I
with a little Nick Cardy thrown in.
I absolutely see it.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? And this was what?
Yeah, that is
87.
Could be. Who edited
it? 87. It was 87.
Was that issue 10? I don't think I edited a few issues.
Yeah, no, this was. I don't think you had. Marv edited this issue.
Yeah, it could be. That's probably true.
But it's funny how that happens, right? So like I looked at the cover. I'm like, oh yeah, because Eric's name is like right there. It's like Eric Larson, Romeo Tangal with the inks, and I'm like, yeah, this I remember. I remember I owned it. I bought it in '87. I had it. It was really good, and I was a big fan of Eric Larson's at that point. Because I loved the way he put lines together, and then I looked at the signature. I'm like, that's Bill.
Yeah. Well, it's always a magic trick.
Yeah, with him especially.
Out of the hat, and that's beautiful. I mean, the nice thing about Eric's progress is that he's very true to his roots. Many cartoonists are. There's no question about it. But somehow that enthusiasm that us folk had for Marvel back in the 60s and 70s just comes right across on the page. Doesn't matter if it's like a DC book or whatever. It an Image book. You can see it. It's palpable. So palpable. Big fan of the guys. I am so glad to see that, Savage Dragon has made it to 275 issues, plus all the crossovers and all the other stuff. And Eric's done all that work. He's reaching for Dave Sims' record. Dave Sims did 300 issues of Cerebus, about 100 of which people want to kill him for. But,
well, I don't want to kill him. I just don't care. So another book I want to talk about is something that you and I haven't talked about, but we have talked to the writer of it. And it's Drawing Blood. So issue 7 just came out last week. Mm-hmm. And we talked to Dave Avalone last year when this was coming. Do not sleep on this book. It is
on it.
Don't sleep on it. It is good. It is. People should read this book.
Is it
It
lumpy?
is what?
Is it lumpy?
It's chunky. There's a lot of stuff in it. There's a lot of stuff in it. It is another example of elevating the form, right? So this book is semi-autobiographical story. Not really, but like you can see who is who in it. Written by David Avalone, Kevin Eastman's story. Ben Bishop does the main art. Troy Little does some as well, along with Taylor Esposito doing the letters and other colorists. But there are 3 styles of art in this. There's the main story that Ben Bishop draws and inks. There are hallucination stories where the main character is seeing his creation and interacting with them. And Troy Little does those sequences. Troy Little did a lot of turtle work. And then there are these flashback sequences that Kevin Eastman draws and Ben Bishop inks. And it's just there's a larger story going on, right? There's a story that goes on in this. There's murder, there's heist, there's danger, there's comics chaos, comics industry chaos. It's people trying to sell comics and people making movies out of comics, and that well. It's for someone who loves the industry, it's a book you should read. For someone who's interested in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it's something you should read. For somebody who just loves the medium and what you can do with it, you should read this book.
Well, they had me with the Kirby crackle on the cover, but
they're all Kevin Eastman covers, right?
I understand that. I mean, the coloring on the cover is a little off.
It's been that all these covers, they're not the greatest covers. I will grant you that.
Well, but the coloring on the logo should pop.
Again, the covers could be better, and the logo doesn't pop where it should. But I guess I don't know I will grant you that. But I think that's just they wanted Kevin to draw the covers, and he's doing it, so you're getting what you get. But unfortunately, I don't want that to deter anybody from thinking that the inside of this book, first of all, doesn't look like that. It's not Kevin drawing most of it, but it's heartbreaking. It is moving. It is exciting. It is extremely well put together. A book like this elevates the medium and says, look, you can do things. This is not superheroes punching each other in the face and in any way, shape, or form. Not that we talk about stuff like that. Not that most comics are that, but this is something that kind of really pushes the boundaries and pushes what you can do. And this is issue 7 is out now, and it's 12 issues altogether. I think it'll be collected in a large omnibus, in a large, deluxe edition, and probably have 2 trades or whatever it is. But I am a huge fan of this book, and I slept on it a little bit. I didn't start. I think I read the first 5. I had collected them together, and because I didn't get to them, I missed one. So then when I got 5 of them and I read them, I couldn't wait for the next one.
Did you notice that the 3 books that you and I have talked about thus far are all from Image?
That's true. No, Boom is Boom. Mine Arcana is from Boom.
Okay.
So 2 Image, 1 Boom. I do have one more book to talk about, and it is a big 2. So
Uh, what's amusing to me is that I don't think we tend to look at DC and Marvel anymore for great innovations. We look at them for great stories, and sometimes we get that, and that's great. That's terrific. That's phenomenal. That's what it's all about. But in terms of just innovative themes, you, I would wish that the people who do have access to more money would be able to be a little bit riskier with it. Now, I am sure that the next convention I go to, I'm going to run into some folks in editorial management who say, yes, we're trying and we can't get it through for this reason and that reason and the other reason. And I'm familiar with all of those reasons. So it's not on editorial's ass that I say that.
So I'm going to agree with you, but also challenge you on this. So the last book that I wanted to talk about is from the Big Two, and it's a book that I'm reading. Third issue is out. It's Black Canary, best of the best.
Yep.
Now, this is not your typical DC comic book. It is not your typical DC superhero comic book. It is written by Tom King, art by Ryan Sook, edited by Brittany Holzer. So let's throw that out there right now.
Those are three very good names.
Dave Stewart does colors. Clayton Cowles, of course, does the letters. Gillian Grant is the assistant editor, and I think she does a lot of good work here as well. So the thing about this book, and I'm a huge fan of it. This book ostensibly is a fight. It is a MMA style fight between Black Canary and Lady Shiva. Now, anybody who knows DC Comics knows that's ridiculous because Lady Shiva will kill everybody and everybody. Like there's no shot. She's got no shot. It's Lady Shiva. She's the best fighter in the world. The only person who can approach her is her daughter. But there is this fight. This is going to happen, and so we learn about this. The audience is taken on a ride, and one of the things that makes this book work is that there are multiple storylines that are occurring. It is hilarious. The use of the English word and language, it excites the senses in this book. The visuals are just stunning. It is. I'm a big fan of Ryan Sook. I think he's fantastic. I've never seen him work at this type of level, and that is saying quite a bit.
Absolutely, and you have at least three really great characters in this series.
Oh yes,
you have, and two of them are named Black Canary. And Wildcat is the third. Ted Grant is the third.
Don't forget Wordy John. Listen, Wordy John is one of the best characters ever created. It's probably one of the only few characters Tom King's ever created. And let me tell you, Wordy John, keeper.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. It goes into areas that probably, backing up just a hair, you're getting glare there. That should be exposed. What is the relationship between Black Canary and her mother? Free of all the WBCW stuff.
Sure.
I mean, just from the perspective of comics, because Black Canary is unique in that she's one character that was split into two. And one day they decided, rightfully, correctly, that the one that hangs out with the Justice League is not the one that used to hang out and maybe still hangs out with the Justice Society. It's her daughter, which makes perfect sense.
Sure.
But what's the relationship between the two of them now? I haven't seen a lot of that, except for in this series. So once again, Tom has found a space that he could excavate and build magic, and that's what he's doing.
He is. It is okay. So the thing about this is that there's a story going on, right? So ostensibly to the outside world, there's this battle royale between these two, fantastic people. No powers, no weapons. So, but we also see what led up to this event. We see multiple different things that occur. Each issue we're learning a little bit more about what led up to it, while we keep flashing back and forth between this destructive pugilistic battle. The entertainment of the announcers that narrate this battle,
Bizarre.
I mean, they have me rolling. It is, I mean, I don't think there's a thesaurus that has all the words in it.
I'd love to get Mark Fishman's take on this series, because Mark's a big wrestling fan, or at least was until very recently. I think he still is. And I think he would know a little bit more. He would have something to say about the theatrics involved in
I mean, the theatrics are good. I guarantee. I mean, like, so I definitely know that Tom has a little bird that he can talk to about wrestling. We have a mutual friend who is a huge wrestling fan, and that person is someone that Tom leans on for reality. So I guarantee you that it's good. I'm not a huge wrestling fan. I mean, it seems to play fine, but it's a good battle. It's devastating in so many ways. I haven't cried yet, but yet is probably the operative word. It's something. But it is just, it's not your standard book from DC.
No, there's a risk that you take when you're doing a story, even a story of the beginning, middle, and end, because this is a mini series or whatever they're calling those things now.
It's a limited series.
The whatever. A lot of books that were supposed to be ongoing didn't last as long as some of these miniseries, so the phrasing is a little weird to me. But still, you're taking a risk by going for a big payoff.
Mm-hmm.
You're pushing stuff to the back, reasons why people want to read the book. What is going on? I don't know what's going on over here. Let's find out. Let's find out over the course of several months. Okay, that gets risky because you can lose the reader's attention. Tom is not going that route. He's managed to keep us fixated on his story, on the characters, including, I think, Batman. Other guys like show up, and
people show up, come and go, but they're not important.
No, they're not critical to the story.
Right,
they're there for flavoring, if you will.
They're flavor. They're comic relief at times.
At times.
Batman
hasn't shown up, but yes. I hope I didn't just give Tom an idea. Batman, we can get him in here. But that's a ballsy story.
Might end up in Lanterns.
No, they're not gonna take that one out of the bag. Not in the movies and TV. I don't see them interfering with Batman, but maybe, who knows?
Listen, he showed up in or a version of him showed up in Teen Titans Go, right? Or Teen Titans.
Yeah. I mean, they can move around a little bit, but they tend to leave the bat alone.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it is very much a story about Dinah Lance and Dinah Drake. Did you catch
Yeah.
Did you catch there was a mistake, right? I've had a couple of things I read this week where there were errors in the book. There is an error in this where the older canary calls the younger canary by her name. She said the older one calls her Dinah Drake instead of Dinah Lance.
Yeah, I figured. I hadn't noticed that.
It's when she's in the bedroom and she's hurt. She screams at her and she yells.
I recall the scene.
She calls her Dinah Drake. Get out of here.
You think that was a mistake?
Yes. I think it was a mistake because it confused me. It absolutely confused me. And then later on, she said, like, it was very clear that the names that I thought are correct are correct. Because at one point I was like, maybe this is a different situation. Like, who knows? Maybe there's a older canary, and we're talking about, like, because you don't know, but it was corrected later. It was done properly. So,
wait a moment.
You think it was?
Did you suggest there might be a grandma canary?
I did, because you don't know.
I don't know.
There's no time in this book,
and you know, you're giving people ideas. They're not necessarily bad ideas. It's what they do with them. But I could live without a grandma canary.
Sure.
The fishnets. Well, I shouldn't say that. At my age, okay, go for it.
Listen, she's had one bad outfit.
I could argue that point. I never got as many letters from people about shoes as I have received on my days with Green Arrow and Black Canary, which was a long period of time.
They didn't like her shoes?
Well, they're not practical.
No.
They weren't at the time. They're more so now. They weren't practical then.
Sure.
You couldn't be doing a superhero action in those shoes. Absolutely. And you know what? If you fly with a cape, it's going to wrap around your head.
So when you since we're talking about Canary, right? So you were the editor on the book that she came out with the jumpsuit and the wrap, the bandana around the, whatever that thing was around her head. So who did that design?
I have no recollection.
Do you know what I'm talking about, though?
I do know what you're talking about. I'm not 100% certain I was involved with the book at that point.
It was in Legends. She showed up with it in Legends.
Oh, then if she showed up within Legends, then it was either John Byrne's fault.
I think it was, but that's why I was asking you to
or
confirm.
Something that was pre-existing that I don't recall 40 years later.
Right, I understand, but so I didn't know. I was just wondering if John had redesigned the character for that.
Not to my recollection.
Because then immediately she went into Justice League. So I don't know, maybe it was something Kevin wanted to do with it. Could have been that.
Could be.
It was either John or Kevin. I'm blaming one of them.
Okay. Well, John's not going to respond and Kevin can't. So what the hell?
Oh, yeah, I mean, he can. But I'll ask him. He probably hates it.
It's hard to say.
So, all right. So those three books are books that I've read, plus yours as well. We'll throw Savage Dragon. There are comic books out there that are today that are challenging what we can do in this medium and continuing to tell a story. They're not gimmicks. They're not, trying to trick you into thinking something. They are living within the medium that they exist in and pushing the boundaries and using all the tools that within that medium to give you an entertaining experience. That's
the key word. And let me take that back to Savage Dragon. I've been reading Savage Dragon for about 275 issues now, plus spin-offs and stuff. Every single one of them has been entertaining, not necessarily heavy, although there are heavy scenes, and not necessarily thought provoking, although there's a lot of navel staring from here to there. Entertaining. Now, I'm not saying all comics have to be pure entertainment, because that's not real, and we have things to say and stories to tell that don't fit into that. But damn it, it's nice to just sit back and go like, just for the entertainment, and that's fun. That's great.
I want to take some. We're going to go for a little bit longer. Thank you everybody for being here. John, had some technical difficulties or something to that effect. We'll say that he'll be back on the show. But I want to,
I think it's the Northern Lights.
Could be, but thank you for being here. We're going to talk about a couple more things. A couple of things that you worked on with John that I want to talk about that I had planned that I didn't think we were going to get to because we would have too much.
I don't mind talking about John behind his back.
Well, it's not necessarily that, but it's this. So who designed the logo? That's what I want to know. Let's talk about this. I just want to talk about the dress.
Wow. Who designed the logo? That's like asking me, like, well, what happened to your afterbirth?
Come on.
I don't remember. Call up Todd Klein while we're here. And Todd
today's his birthday. It's happy birthday, Todd. Today's not Todd's
birthday. It is his birthday. That's right. That's right.
I wonder if he did it. Like, I'm sure he knows, but
I'm sure he knows.
It is a great logo.
Absolutely. And it is not a logo that started out with a jokingly crude design, which is what my logo designs were. Jokingly crude. The question logo started off with my doing, a little pencil job on a piece of paper and saying, something like this, and then we'd talk about it a lot. Wasteland, I do not recall. I love that W.
Yeah. It was, and here's the thing about the W in Wasteland in this logo. If you see it, it will put you back in time. It is something that was so perfect for its time at the place that it was. Like it the way that it sits atop the bullet and slides there, it's just which is almost a bit of a reverence right to DC. It's like, we're not going to show you the whole logo for the company because we're more than that. Like, there's so much about this trade dress that's just beautiful. And like, one of the things about it is that I think that, this trade dress was very unique for DC at the time, and I believe in my heart of hearts that, Karen stole it and took it to Vertigo. I mean, it is proto Vertigo's trade dress, right?
Let me know when you ask Karen about that.
We got to get Karen on the show, but yeah, we'll see. I'm sure she didn't read it. I'm sure she didn't like it.
No, we talked. We had a few conversations about Wasteland.
She did. She liked it then.
She didn't complain. We were talking
about that's fair enough.
Yeah, I think that is. We were talking about boundaries, not in a negative or a political term. We were talking about boundaries in terms of storytelling and what you couldn't do that we could do now. And that is a conversation that never ends. And it's a fascinating conversation. And quite frankly, given what we were doing at Wasteland and given what Karen was doing with what I think became Vertigo, it was a very, very valid conversation. There are people to this very day who come up to me after a panel, even those that you have moderated, and say, how the hell did you get away with that stuff?
Well, I have asked you that question.
I mean, people in the business who've been working at the time or now who can't get away with that stuff. And, I would trademark the phrase "under the radar," but I really have no right to do that.
So, you didn't you didn't have a consistent cover penciler.
No, we had 4 artists, 3 of whom would rotating, 3 of whom would do interior stories, and the 4th would do the cover, and we'd rotate. And then, ultimately somebody would, like bail out for whatever reason, like, their own creation. And or just, it was time to do something else, and we'd replace that person in that slot.
Sure.
So yeah, that was a thing. We literally would have the cover artist not have an interior story, which is, by the way, something that appalled me prior to Wasteland. I remember too many times as a kid picking up Joe Kubert covers and thinking that Joe would actually be inside the book. Joe's work would be inside the book, and they weren't, and I was pissed, and I still am. You'd think I'd get over it after all these years, but no. But here, we have David Lloyd, and we got, Bill
This is George Freeman.
I'm sorry?
This one is George Freeman on the cover, right?
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about that original group of people. And
so those are the 4. It was George Freeman, David Lloyd.
Yeah, well, those are the original 4. I'm trying to remember who colored the cover, and I can't.
Who colored the cover?
Yeah.
It's just George Freeman is the only person who's listed. So
yeah, I know we didn't list cover colors in those days.
I don't know. But like I said, that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about. I'm surprised you don't know who. I mean, it's a good logo.
It's a great logo, and I'm very, 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 very pleased with it. Like I say, that W, they should have merchandised that.
Yeah.
Then again, look at the people who would have bought it.
Yeah, well,
I would have.
Okay, so this one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was the extra special gold.
It's the A cover.
Yeah.
Right? It is the cover. Now,
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Obviously, you were not prepared for scanning, because this is probably the best scan I've ever seen of this cover. It is so hard. Like, how did you, like, the fact that you made this, shiny foil cover, right, in 1993? That was the beginning of the foilness, right? Where you fighting with I think it definitely was early on in the foil.
Oh yeah, it was shortly after Image and all of those cover gimmicks, which we're still doing today, but differently.
Yeah. So, were there any challenges with this and how it worked out? Like,
if they weren't mine to face, because I left DC in '93. And scanning wasn't really that much of a consideration back then.
What?
Scanning.
Yeah, obviously it wasn't.
Because those lenticular covers that they did, you can't scan those either.
Oh, well, I was under the impression that you did edit this, but you didn't. You had left.
Yeah,
Archie edited it.
No, I was part of the process transitioning over to this, but that was it. So I didn't have to worry about those production problems. I had no idea how you do a cover like that. I just think it's easier today than it was then, and probably a lot less expensive than it was then.
So now it's funny because now you'll see people talking about when they come out with the foil cover. It's like, oh, we found some leftover foil from the '90s, and we're gonna use it for this particular cover.
When we were doing books over at Image, Mike Grell and I.
Mhm.
I
yeah,
proposed. I'm sorry.
Those covers are something.
Well, I had proposed we do. I mean, everybody was deep into gimmick covers in those days. So, sarcastic little bastard that I am, I suggested that we do a cover on bubblegum stock. Big, like Topps bubblegum.
Yes. That doesn't
And
go.
you just print it on the bubblegum. And Image thought I was insane. Now, they were probably right about that. And the cost probably would have been prohibitive. And you'd have to, shrink wrap all of the copies and stuff. And it'd cost a bitch to ship. But that was my comment on the stunt covers of the time. And my friend, Mr. Grell, went along with that. He thought that was a great idea. I don't think either of us ever thought we'd get away with it. And as it turns out, we didn't.
Was that for Shaman's Tears or for Maggie the Cat?
I think it was for Shaman's Tears. I'm fairly certain it was for Shaman's Tears.
The covers from that era of Mike's work are just very, they're super contrast heavy.
Yeah, Mike had always been playing around with how to get different types of effects on covers.
Yep.
Using different types of pencils and different types of colored pencils, and doing the white on gray paper thing, which wasn't really being done when Mike first started. There were a few here and there. It didn't occur to me until just now that might be because Mike just has a very short attention span. And the reason why that didn't occur to me until right now is because I have a very short attention span. But we got some great covers out of that.
I don't remember what book it was, but I was reading a book this week and I noticed that the balloons were absent of pigment.
Okay.
The white balloons, the only ink in those white balloons was the letters. The balloons were had the same texture as the paper.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no printing where the balloons are. White was just the color of the paper.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that happens? I'd never noticed that before.
I would think that was pretty typical of the medium, between the origins of the medium, between like Famous Funnies #1 or Comics on Parade #1 and the comics of the turn of this millennium. We didn't have the computers, so it wasn't easy to color in there. And we did have, it was letterpress printing, which wasn't very good. It wasn't offset printing. It's why you couldn't. It's why Hawkeye didn't have a first name for so long. And when you did have a first name, they made it Clint, because the L and the I were less likely at that point in time to crowd together and turn it into a word that you wouldn't like people to.
So it was his name. Like they just made up that name. It wasn't like that was his name. Like when he first existed, they're like, oh, his name's Clint, but we can't tell him what his name. We can't say what his name is because
I think it was a retrofit.
I think sure it was a retrofit.
Yeah, yes, I'd put money on it. But I that was a big thing. There were a number of words that you really couldn't do because in print, the printing was so bad. I mean, let's face it, it's the cheapest printing in the world back in the letterpress days. The printing, and when they had those silly putty plates and the lines would boogie up and stuff, you had no idea how it would look. Inlines looked ridiculous, which is why the DC logo looked ridiculous. The inlines would break up. It's a pain. It really was. And now we can do anything. And chances are pretty good that people will be able to read it. Every once in a while, we will get a white lettering on a green background or something that doesn't quite work out. And in those days, you might see a copy from the early part of the print run, and we'd get these sort of, they're called make-readies from the printer, the first few copies that fall off the print press unbound, and the printing would be much better than at the later part of the print run, where they were like running out of ink or paper or time or patience or whatever. And you might have a problem with the lower part of the print run. I have had letters and comments from, pissed off parents who say, "How dare you use that word in a comic book for children?" Well, if your child is reading Wasteland, don't bitch me out. But quite aside from that, it's because that's what happens with this cheap ass printing. The printing of comics for the last 30 years is so vastly superior to what it was in the first 30 years.
I understand that. That's why I was, like I said, normally if I look at something and I'll see the printing, I'll see that like the printed page it's all the same texture. But I was sitting there and I noticed that the light was hitting the balloons, and it wasn't reflecting off, just like the way that the outside edge of the paper was not reflecting off. And so it was just weird. It was interesting.
Well, in the 80s, mid 80s, we meaning the printers, and were experimenting in order to keep costs down. World Color was desperate to keep our business, and everybody's business. I'm talking about the industry's business. So they came out with cheaper plates, and we'd get those little boogie lines that I was just talking about. Or, we would eliminate the lightest tone of yellow, which, by the way, I had brought back. That's one of my accomplishments at DC. I brought the 25% yellow back. And because it costs, they say $15 a book by not having that light yellow, which was stupid. And Sal Harrison thought it was stupid. That was in the 70s. They tried very, very hard to keep our business, but you can only cut so much. The engraving was not as great as it is now. Of course, we have computers, and computers have made our lives so much easier until maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago, when they became weaponized.
Yeah.
That's a different conversation.
That was yesterday, so don't worry about
that. Yeah, really. It's really a miracle. We would get in foreign copies, not very many, of our books back in the 70s. And every time Sal, who was president of the company, but used to run production and really knew his production backwards and forwards, Sal would look at that stuff that was printed offset and just was jealous as all hell. This is a man who worked on the engraving of Superman #1. So he knew what he was talking about. He and Jack Adler designed the coloring system used in the newspaper comic strip industry before that, for the New York Daily News, for example. And he would look at that stuff and go, "Look at these guys. They're an Albanian. They can do offset." Yeah. And we can't.
Well, I mean, again, one of the things we've talked about tonight, and thank you again, everybody, for being here. We will get John back on the show at some point. I'm not sure when, but it'll be soon. Because we have some stuff we want to talk to him about.
Well, you know what we could do? We could just drive over to his house in Michigan and ambush him.
We can do that. we might have to do it that way. We'll just have a show, just a pop-up ambush show.
Well, or we could be mysterious about it. There's some great little barbecue places all over his neighborhood that mostly entertain bikers. So they look a little intimidating, but the barbecue is terrific. And we can just invite him over to one of his own places for barbecue and then whip out the cameras.
That sounds good. Again, thank you so much for everybody staying and indulging us in this conversation about comics and what makes them interesting and how we can continue to evolve them, within the pages of 32 pages or whatever it is. We're gonna wrap it up, but we are gonna have a show next week.
Right.
It is also going to be interesting for multiple reasons. First reason is our guest, who I have already confirmed will be here. We will have Erica Schultz.
Yay.
She's looking forward to being here. She's going to give us an hour of her time because she's extremely busy. But we're going to talk about the books she's working on. We're going to talk about her role in this industry, which has, in the time that I've known her, has continued to grow. I'm excited to talk to her about that.
Major talent.
What's that? Absolutely.
Major talent.
Absolutely. She, I may not enjoy the subject matter of the books she works on sometimes, but I enjoy what she does with it. So, so Erica's going to be here. The other interesting part about next week is that I will not be in this room. I will be in Florida next week. So I will be broadcasting remotely. I'm going to test that out ahead of time, but we will,
they have Wi-Fi in Florida.
I'll bring a cable,
okay.
A long one. I will bring my microphone. I'll bring my, everything else. So it's going to be, we may be a little bit different than Grayson. Get off. He's like, I don't mind him being here. It's just his tail's about to hit the camera, and we don't want that.
This show will go down history as 90 minutes of me mostly not getting political at all. A couple of little jibes.
I appreciate it. Believe me, and anybody who's watching, just know I'm trying really hard to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. I seem to be having an easier time keeping my mouth shut than you, which I find interesting considering, I'm the political nut here. But
yes, well, I'm the one who's directly affected.
Well, that's very true. And without raising any fears in the hearts of America, I sympathize, and I hope everything goes great.
Yeah. Well, everybody, thank you so much for being here. We are the Pop Culture SquadCast. We are going to be here live for you next Tuesday, and we have people scheduled out beyond that. We'll get the schedule out over the next few days so that you'll know who's going to be where and when. We're going to throw a Monday in February, so tune in.
Yeah, that's going to be really strange. You're going to have to tell me that like 18 times.
I will. It's on a holiday though. We're doing the Monday on President's Day, and we're going to have a Canadian on, so that's even more appropriate.
That works for me. Oh, nice tail, Bob.
Yeah.
Yes, folks, we let our cats just walk wherever they want to because they're cats. You can't stop them. What the hell?
So President's Day with a Canadian, we're going to have that. It'll be Ed Brisson, and we're looking forward to that. So we'll let you know the rest of it coming up soon. Stay tuned.
You have to say the whole Canada thing right when I said I haven't been political for an hour and a half. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. He's American. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Good enough.
That's right. There you go. That's right.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
All very much for being here. Sorry that the thing with John didn't work out. We will find out why and let you know. But thanks for hanging in there and putting up with two of us babbling like sons of bitches, which is what we do best.
All right, everybody. We'll see you later.
Thank you. See you next week.
This has been a production of the Pop Culture Squad Network. PopCultureSquad.com. How do you nerd?